Okay, got a lot to get through here. Geez, between Money in the Bank and explaining my rather short video on Sunday night in reaction to Money in the Bank, a little bit of Raw, a little bit of SummerSlam, and I want to talk some movies too, because I saw a movie this weekend that really made me happy. So I want to talk about that as well. We'll start off with that, just to get the non-wrestling stuff out of the way. Yeah, Pacific Rim was fucking awesome. I just gotta throw that out there. I really, really enjoyed that movie. And admittedly, the movie's not for everybody, so I can't, like, universally recommend Pacific Rim. You have to really be into that kind of thing to really enjoy it. What I will say is that if you grew up watching Voltron or Power Rangers or Ultraman or anything else that featured the concept of, you know, piloting giant robots to fight giant monsters that are destroying cities, or if you're like me and you used to spend chunks of your childhood searching TV guides for Godzilla movie marathons or Ray Harryhausen movie marathons or whatever creature feature you could find, and just love the concept of giant monsters destroying cities, and if you've always wanted like a big budget badass version of that concept, you're going to fucking love this movie. This is a total love letter to the genre, and it's just so much fun. So much fun. I mean, the story, the characters, and the acting in it is good enough to get by, but really it's just a showcase for awesome monsters and awesome robots. It really did remind me of Jurassic Park, which was kind of the same thing. You know, the characters and the story and the plot in that movie are just kind of... It's good enough, but it's all about showcasing these awesome monsters, and that's what we're there for anyway. So, yeah, and you know, speaking of Jurassic Park, you know, movie monsters have not been this cool since that movie came out. This was just an awesome showcase for some pretty cool monsters all the way through. Great designs, great creatures, and it led to a lot of great action sequences. Just so much fun, and giant robots have never been this cool, so to see that done as well as it was on screen, that was also awesome. I mean, you know, and it's easy to beat up on the Transformers, the Michael Bay Transformers movie, but Pacific Rim just did such a great job with these things, and I really love the detail that went into the science behind the robots and the monsters themselves and how they work. They really did look like giant behemoths tearing through the city. And part of my problem with the Transformers is that you see Optimus Prime, he's doing backflips and spins through the air and stuff, and it looks like he's not really there because a giant robot wouldn't be moving that freely, you know, because they carry a lot of weight. Even a lot of the later Godzilla movies kind of got this wrong. Godzilla Final Wars, I think, you know, you'll see like King Caesar jumping in the air and doing spin kicks. I'm like, yeah, I call bullshit. I call bullshit on that. But here it's like they really do look like these, you know, methodical, slow-moving, lumbering beasts that are great forces of destruction. And little touches like with the robots, there was something called the rocket punch, where they had like a rocket in their elbow to kind of launch their arm forward to throw a punch. Things like that actually make sense, because, you know, that you got to think of how heavy those arms must be, because, you know, they're made of fucking heavy metal and all that jazz. So everything that went into the details of creating the robots and the monsters was just great. And Guillermo del Toro was just a magnificent bastard. And just like, oh, you are such a creative genius. I just loved it. And of course, at the end credits, there was a nice little tribute to Ray Harryhausen and Ishiro Honda, who was the original director of the original Godzilla movie. So, I mean, this is a movie made by fans, for fans. It's a total nerdgasm fest of a movie. And if the new Godzilla movie ends up sucking, at least I have this. Pacific Rim is pretty sweet. So if you're looking for a movie to go see, I highly recommend that, if you're into that kind of stuff. If you want to see giant monsters tearing through cities and being fought by giant robots, this is as good as it gets. It was really, 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 really good. And they kept me in a good mood through most of the weekend, actually, because I'm thinking I might go see it again, because I really enjoyed it. Anyway, back to wrestling. I think I should explain my video, my instant reaction to the results of Money in the Bank. Obviously, in 30 seconds, and me just responding to the outcome of the main event, it's going to make it sound very negative, and I think some people walked away from that thinking that I hated the pay-per-view. Even the ones that agreed with what I said probably walked away and was like, wow, he must have really hated that pay-per-view. I actually didn't. I thought Money in the Bank overall was a pretty solid show. It's just the end results to the Money in the Bank ladder match just made me roll my eyes. And I'll start with that match since that's the most important match. I'm glad that it closed. That was the match that needed to close out the pay-per-view. It was the most interesting match, had the most drama tied to it, and had the most intrigue. And I thought once they gave it the main event spot over Cena and Henry, I was like, oh my god, Daniel Bryan's going to win. I'm like, Daniel Bryan's going to win. That's going to be the big moment that they're going to close out on. Didn't happen. But there were so many other factors. Rob Van Dam was obviously very over, and he did what he always does. He hit his spots and looked pretty good doing it. So he also had a good match with Jericho the next night on Raw, although he looked a little like clunky in it. But then again, that's Rob Van Dam. He's got to be put in the ring with people that know how to put a match together, or he's got to be put in a situation where there's a gimmick, or it's just a total free-for-all where he can just hit his spots. That's when Rob Van Dam is at his best. And put him in with guys like Chris Jericho, or put him in matches like the Money in the Bank ladder match. You're going to get good stuff out of him. So he looked good here, and he was way over with the crowd, which also helped. Daniel Bryan was way over. CM Punk was way over. And there was a lot of energy in the match, and it was just a really fun, good, action-packed ladder match. The bit was where Paul Heyman turned on CM Punk was done beautifully. That was a great moment. I expected Lesnar to come out and do it, but the fact that they had Heyman be the one to do it, that to me really made it more personal and more like, oh wow, that's going to lead to some good stuff on television. Sure enough, the next night on Raw, we got segment of the year. Anybody agree with me on that? Segment of the year. That was an awesome segment where CM Punk laid out, this is what I'm going to do to you, Paul Heyman, and revenge and blah, blah, blah. I swear on your children, I'm going to do this to you. And Paul Heyman, laying down the law with CM Punk and a lot of the shots that he was firing. And then the brawl between Punk and Lesnar where Lesnar just destroyed CM Punk. Really painted the picture as like Brock is a monster and CM Punk's going to be the underdog. So, oh my god, that was just so good, so well done. And I'm so happy that Lesnar's done with Triple H, because once he's out of the Triple H bullshit, it's like, oh yeah, Lesnar's actually quite valuable and entertaining on TV. There you go. And oh my god, he works to his full potential when he's killing people. Oh, there you go, it works. So I'm really looking forward to the Lesnar-Punk match. I think we're going to get some great television going forward, and we already have. I mean, that segment was just fantastic. We've already gotten, this feud, has just started. We've already gotten 3 fantastic segments. Lesnar beating up Punk at the end of that match on Raw, the Punk-Heyman showdown in the middle of the ring, and then this past Monday night on Raw, the Punk-Heyman split and Lesnar beating up Punk again. All very, very good television. And whenever I see stuff like that, I just think Punk and Heyman have to be writing that themselves, because it's just it just feels like it has their flavor and their touch on it. It is so good and so well done, and I can't praise that segment enough. And the initial turn at Money in the Bank was so well handled, like the look on Punk's face and the look on Heyman's face when he threw the ladder into him. Wow, expert stuff. I can't praise that enough. So yeah, the main event was really good, and I'm glad that they closed with the ladder match. Why didn't Daniel Bryan win the contract? I'm sorry, I can't. And yes, Daniel Bryan is going to face John Cena at SummerSlam. I knew that was going to happen, because it's, WWE does this all the time. And I guess maybe this is the problem with having 2 world championships again, where it's like, oh, well, we don't have to do it like this because we've got this other guy lined up, so we can do this instead and then build the other guy up later. And that kind of 50-50 booking again. It's like, well, he doesn't have to win the big match yet, because we can give him contendership another way. And to me, it really reminds me of when Sheamus won the Royal Rumble over Chris Jericho. What was the point of that? I'm sorry, what was the point of that? To this day, I still question that decision. I just felt like Punk and Jericho was the bigger match. Nobody gave a shit about Sheamus and Daniel Bryan. If Sheamus wins the Royal Rumble or not, it's not going to make people give a shit about that match. But Punk and Jericho was a big match. Started off in a big way with that epic, Jericho gets the Royal Rumble win and then immediately, goes after Punk from that point forward. They didn't really do that. They just set it up on Raw, I think, the next night. And They just kind of did what they always do. And I think they kind of took the legs out from that match a little bit. And I still think Daniel Bryan and John Cena is going to be a strong main event for SummerSlam. SummerSlam's already got 2 really strong main events, so I'm really happy with that. And I think the crowd is going to be so into Bryan, and it's going to be like a One Night Stand 2006 deal or a Money in the Bank 2011 deal where the crowd is just so into the challenger and hates Cena so much that it's going to have a great atmosphere. I think it's going to be one of those type of matches. I just wish, make the match as big as it can be. End Money in the Bank in a way that builds into SummerSlam. End it in a way where Daniel Bryan wins the briefcase, gets on the microphone, yells yes, yes, yes 18 times, and then maybe the next night on Raw make his intentions clear. I'm going to cash this in at SummerSlam. Cena, get ready. That to me would have been so much better than doing what they did on Raw, where Cena's like, I'll go ask the WWE Universe who I should face. Because, Cena's a fucking pandering douchebag. I fucking hate that character so fucking much. Every time he opens his mouth, I just go into a fit of rage, and I just him. But I just wish they had done it in the bigger way instead of doing it in their typical pandering to the WWE Universe way. I didn't like that as much. I think it would have been bigger if Bryan had won the briefcase. And let's talk about Randy Orton winning the briefcase. Could they have picked a more boring option to win that match? I mean, CM Punk, it's like, okay, because he's tied in with Lesnar, they could probably do something with that. Rob Van Dam, he's the big star that just returned, so okay, they could probably do something with that. Christian, he hasn't been champion 10 times, so it wouldn't be boring. Sheamus would be pretty boring, I would admit. Sheamus would be pretty boring, but Randy Orton, it's like, what is there that you could possibly do with him in this briefcase, aside from a stupid shock cash-in, which has become overplayed and cliched anyway? I don't want to see it, especially since he's been champion 8 or 9 times. What is it? It's got to be somewhere in like the 8 to 10 range. I don't care. Once you've won it that many times, you've held it enough, okay? I don't care anymore. And I just don't see any interesting possibilities here with Orton. Okay, we'll turn him heel. Well, he was horrible as heel champion back in 2009. What's the point? They could reform Legacy, because it was so great the first time, It's like, all right, the NWO, DX, the Four Horsemen, those things have been ripped off and rehashed and brought back so many goddamn times, and it sucks worse every single time that they do bring it back. But at least they used to be good. Legacy was never good, and that's not the talent's fault. It was more like the way they were booked. Cody and Ted were given the Bebop and Rocksteady treatment, but, I don't see any value in bringing Legacy back because they were never all that great to begin with. And chances are, the rehash is never as good as the original one, and if the original one was never that good, it's probably not a worthwhile investment to bring that back. So there's really nothing they can do with Orton in the briefcase aside from what they do all the time, where it's like, oh, we're going to put the belt on him in some random cash-in just because that's what we do. And I've already said my piece about why the random cash-ins just don't do it for me anymore, and why I think the briefcases should be used to build up big title matches, not shock us with some out-of-nowhere title win that doesn't really benefit anybody. It doesn't even really keep the fans on their toes at this point, because we just know it's coming. Every time the champion gets beat up, we're just like, all right, when's he coming out? It's just expected now, and it's not a shock at all. So I don't see the value in doing it. I especially don't see the value in putting it on Randy Orton. I think that's a waste of a briefcase in my eyes. But, that said, like I said, the ladder match was really good. Actually, the first ladder match was really good, too. That one was more innovative in some of the spots they did. The 2 stars of the match were Dean Ambrose and Cody Rhodes. Dean Ambrose, fucking awesome. Love him. And a lot of the stuff he did in that match was really cool. And Cody actually came off like he won the people over as a babyface in this match, and I think that'll play into his feud with Sandow, which I actually want to see that feud. I think that could be a good feud. Sandow won the briefcase, which was a pleasant surprise. I have a huge man crush on Damian Sandow, so okay, that's cool. I still think that the World Heavyweight title should not exist, but if it has to exist, it's the same thing I said with Ziggler. It's like, look, if this belt has to exist, at least meet me halfway and put it on somebody I like, and, okay, I like Sandow. I'll go with it. Whatever. If this belt has to exist, go ahead and put it on Sandow. That's cool. They need to build him up with more wins, though. He hasn't really been built up all that well at all. And he lost to Christian on Raw this week, which floors me. I'm like, there was no reason for Christian to win that damn match. But again, they want us to think that he can't win the title. So when they do the shock cash-in, oh my God, he did it! Wow, what a shock! M. Night Shyamalan, what a twist! And that's what they always do, and that's why they've had such a hard time creating strong champions. Even the guys that are former champions through the Money in the Bank format, Miz, it feels like he was never champion at this point. Daniel Bryan feels like he's getting his first shot at the title going into SummerSlam. This feels like it's his first real significant chance at a world title, even though he did have the program with CM Punk last year, and even before that, when he was world champion, it was like he was a non-factor, because that's just, that's the world heavyweight title. You're either like mid-card level or you don't matter, and that's typically where you are with the world title in the last few years. And Bryan was one of those you don't matter guys, and that's just a problem with the whole Money in the Bank format and the whole double world champion format, but whatever. Anyways, I did enjoy the first Money in the Bank match, and I looked at those 7 guys, and I was thinking, okay, as long as it's not Swagger or Barrett, I'll stomach it. And pretty much, they give it to Sandow, which I was fine with. Personally, I'd have given it to Ambrose, but that's just me. I'm just a mark for Ambrose like that, I guess. But overall, I did really enjoy that match. I thought it was really cool. What else was on this card? Got Axel versus Miz, which was forgettable. You got AJ versus Caitlyn, which was nowhere near as good as the match they had at Payback. It wasn't typical Diva match bad, but it wasn't that memorable. It was just kind of a kind of match. Give it 2 weeks, I'll probably forget it ever happened. Then you got Ryback versus Jericho, which I was so not invested into this match at all whatsoever. I didn't care. They've already ruined Ryback by this point, I feel, and the win doesn't really do much. And I love how he's gone from this unstoppable monster, and now he's winning with roll-ups. So he's a big guy that's winning like a little guy, and that's just wonderful, wonderful booking. I have a feeling like Ryback's finished. I think they've kind of screwed the pooch on that one. Del Rio versus Ziggler was good. That was a good match. Actually, the ending I predicted with AJ turning on Ziggler, they kind of did at the pay-per-view, but then they fully pulled the trigger on it the next night on Raw. And actually, it was funny how the match on Raw was almost identical to the Money in the Bank match, except for the finish, but, whatever. I mean, they copied a lot of the moves they did at Money in the Bank the night before, they copied the next night on Raw. But yeah, this was a good match. It was a good, solid match, and, we all knew the AJ and Langston turning on Ziggler thing was coming, so you'll probably get a mixed tag of some kind at SummerSlam between them, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I did enjoy this match. I thought it was fun. I liked their Payback match more because the double turn was executed so well, and I felt so bad for Ziggler. It put so much sympathy on Ziggler that match resonates a little bit more with me. But overall, I did enjoy their match at Money in the Bank. And then you got Mark Henry versus John Cena, which, again, was one of those matches, and it's almost like the typical Cena match where I'm just like, okay, let's just get this over with. We know what's coming. We know. He's going to slam Mark Henry with the AA and win the match. And sure enough, that's pretty much what happened. Although it wasn't a bad match. I will say it kind of felt like a typical Hulk Hogan versus Fat Guy match, which, if you grew up in the 80s, you saw those a lot. But that formula can work as long as you treat the big guy like he's a big guy, which they did here, and they made Henry look like a big guy against Cena, and didn't slam him 85 times, so that way when he does get slammed, it actually means something. Even though Cena's already slammed him, as I showed in that highlight package I showed on my Money in the Bank preview video. Although, the funniest thing about getting all those clips for the AAs and the FUs and everything was how whenever JR was calling it, he would react the exact same way, like he'd never seen it before. Oh my God! Oh my God! John Cena! John Cena! Oh my God! And it's just really hilarious. Although, I mean, credit to Jim Ross. That's what he's supposed to do. Sell it like it's the most amazing thing ever. And with JR, it actually feels legitimate as opposed to King or Cole, where it sounds like they're reading from a script. Speaking of that, put JR at the booth for the pre-shows and the the pregame or mid pay-per-view like commentary ESPN style formats. Please put JR at that booth because Vicky Guerrero adds nothing. I love that format, and I love that they do that for the pre-shows and have them throughout the pay-per-views. Just put JR at that booth every month because that makes it feel a little bit more legitimate. And putting Vicky there was just embarrassing. Just really like, what the hell? But yeah, speaking of the pre-show, I did like the Shield versus the Usos. I thought that was a good match. It started off a little slow, but once we got past the second commercial break, which that's really weird that a pre-show has commercial breaks, but whatever. Excuse me. Yeah, the Shield, the Usos, I thought had a good match. It's nice to see good, solid tag team matches. And it just made me wish, it's like, wow, I wish this was actually on the pay-per-view because it was better than most of the matches on the pay-per-view. But whatever. Anyway, Cena won. We all knew that was coming. And that's it. It was a solid match for what it was. It's just that the inevitable was just overbearing and overpowering. And, yeah, fuck John Cena. Anyway, then you got the main event ladder match, which I already talked about. So overall, Money in the Bank was a good show. Maybe it dragged a little, after the first Money in the Bank ladder match, but I felt like the two ladder matches bookending the show actually, started it strong and ended it strong for the most part until Orton won. And they did a lot of things right, and the next night on Raw, they followed up mostly well. I still think Orton having the briefcase is a mistake, and I don't see any entertainment value in it at all whatsoever, and I would have just given it to Bryan and, done the bigger thing, but, they just don't want to do that. And that's exactly how Vince looks at it. He looks at it as like, well, I'm going to put Bryan in the main event in SummerSlam anyway, so why make it, why use the ending of one pay-per-view to build that up when I can give the briefcase to another guy and make him, and in Vince's mind, it's like, I got 2 stars up there instead of just one, but in reality, you're kind of knocking them down a little bit, and instead of letting Bryan get up to, like, right up here, you're kind of keeping both Bryan and Orton at, like, the same level, and not really letting them grow and develop, or letting the match be as big as it should be. And Daniel Bryan and John Cena will still be a big main event. It's just that I wish they'd, use Money in the Bank to build it up. It would have been better. That's basically my point. I'm a nitpicking son of a bitch. That's how I roll. So, yeah, that's actually all I got. Money in the Bank I thought was a good show, even though I still heavily disagree with the ending. Raw followed up on it mostly well. The crowd did not chant Husky Harris at the Wyatts, which, thank you. I appreciate that. They beat up R-Truth, which makes me happy because I don't like R-Truth. Yeah, is there anything else I should cover? The McMahons continue to annoy me, but that goes without saying. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's about it. So yeah, Raw was actually pretty solid this week as well. So, and SummerSlam already right off the bat has 2 really strong main events. So I'm already looking forward to that show. However, if they do John Cena versus Randy Orton at any point in the future because of this Money in the Bank briefcase, I will not order that pay-per-view because I've already seen that match 800 goddamn times. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. I really do feel like I've seen that match 800 times. And especially when you have to look at how many times I've spent money on that match. SummerSlam 07, SummerSlam 09, they were in a 3-way at WrestleMania 24. I saw the submission match or I Quit match or whatever that was. What was that, Breaking Point? Saw that match. I saw their Iron Man match, their Hell in a Cell match. And I should also point out I did not buy these pay-per-views specifically to see those matches. They just happened to be on a card with a match that I wanted to see. But basically my point is, look, I've already paid to see this. Like, how much fucking money do I have to put into seeing Orton versus Cena again? So please don't do Orton and Cena, please. Please, if Orton is going to face somebody for the Money in the Bank briefcase and have a feud, please don't let it be Cena. I don't want to see that match, like, ever again. I would rather chop my dick off and put it in a blender and feed it to a dog. I would rather, eat the contents of a litter box. I would rather ram my head into concrete than sit through John Cena versus Randy Orton again. So, just, for me, personally, for me. Message to the WWE, please don't do that match. I don't want it. But, yeah, that's all I've got for now. I'll probably do a video this weekend. Well, I'm going to a wedding this weekend, hence the haircut. So I hope that my Hank Hill look doesn't startle anybody. But I'm going to a wedding this weekend, so doing a video might be a little tough. But I'll try to get one up by Sunday. I might talk about Destination X, depending on how that goes. We might have a new world champion this week in Chris Sabin. Who knows? I don't know if I would fully agree with that move, but again, we'll see what happens and what TNA will do there. But yeah, that's all I have for now, and y'all enjoy. And if you want, go see Pacific Rim. I highly recommend it. So until then, peace out, everybody.